I'm very honored that Pastor Andrew invited me. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've been teaching the Bible now for almost 2.5 decades as a Bible Torah teacher. I'm a descendant of the Jewish people. I'm Sephardic from Spain, and I believe in Messiah. And I've been teaching basically around the world for the last 25 years about the beauty of the Word of God and our Master, the Messiah, Yeshua. You call him Jesus, I call him Yeshua, so we're not going to fight about it. Is that okay? So, but, I'm delighted to be here. I was here for a conference. I'm married. I live in Orlando, Florida. I love coming here in August and July because it's so hot in Florida. I need to wear my nice little shirts here like that in a different country altogether. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I want to touch on a topic today that is, in my opinion, is very important. How many of you believe in the resurrection? All of you, I hope. If not, we're wasting time. But have you ever considered the crucifixion? Not from necessarily pain or suffering, but from the concept of the New Testament that is honor and shame. Honor and shame concepts. I've been studying now ancient Near Eastern history. As you know, Pastor, we heavily took from the ancient Near Eastern perspective in order to connect the Bible with its environment. As you know, I come from a different culture, Puerto Rico. I grew up in California. By the way, this Perth is exactly like California. It's great. I don't know if you've been to California. It looks like just the same, at least to me, But the culture is very important. We read the Bible, and sometimes we do not consider that the Bible narrative is written to an audience who understood all of the events. How many of you have been to Israel here? As you know, when you went to Israel for the first time and you saw something that you've read, it looks completely different than you imagined. Because the language, the geography, the topography actually reflects the message. The Hebrew language can only help you so far. But then when you see the structure, the archaeology, the geography, then you understand the message behind the message. As I was studying Greco-Roman world, I'm deep into history, ancient Near Eastern understanding of the Bible. I'm trying to contrast the biblical narrative with the way they lived, the way they ate, the way the culture, the language, legal language, and everything like that. My specialty is the temple and also the book of Leviticus. That's really what I've been studying for a long time. And I've noticed that in the Bible begins with a very interesting motif. It's about honor and shame. But we don't see it because we're not exposed to the language. Although you live east of the United States, but you have a guilt innocence mentality like we do in America. But in the Middle East, it's all honor and shame. And the Bible was written in an honor and shame concept, structure. If we go back, how many people from India here? Anyone from India? Okay, if you talk to someone from India, it's an easy message to give them. And you talk to the message of the gospel, not in the context of innocence and guilt. You talk to them as honor and shame. Because the Dalit, they have a caste system. And the Dalit was the lowest of the lowest. And then the gospel message brought them hope, equity, and righteousness. Something they were not receiving in their culture. And that's why there's always been an explosion of the gospel message. When you present it in the context of the good news of equity of salvation given to everyone, as long as you have faith, then the world, regardless of your status, of your money, who you are, fat, tall, skinny, ugly, whatever, it doesn't matter. God is righteous to treat you with equity. Your job is to bring honor to his name by your actions and your conduct. The way we behave reflects the relationship that God's so desperately looking for us to represent him. So if you would allow me, I want to present to you something that I've learned about honor and shame. Specifically, I'm going to give you an introduction to the motif and the concepts. I'm going to give you a lot of examples biblically. And then I'm going to focus the last part of the teaching on the cross, not the resurrection. We all believe in resurrection. Without the resurrection, we have nothing. But we're going to be focusing about what the shame of the cross represented. That God sent his son to take our shame so that now, through his death and resurrection, we will be restored to an honor, a position of honor. Once we recognize that the death on the cross is not about pain and it's not about suffering, it's more about shame through the suffering. And the shame was worse than the suffering. Once I understood this, then the work of Messiah on the cross took a complete different dimension. That's why the cross was a sign of shame in the time of the Roman Empire. But now it's a sign of honor. because it has been victory over death. The shame of one man brought honor to all of us. Are we grateful to him? And we need to remember our beginnings. Sometimes when we walk in the commandments of God and we walk in the relationship, we forget our beginnings. We lose sight of what he's done for us and what he suffered from us, for us. We need to go back to that root. We need to go back to that understanding. And if you allow me, I will do my best to share with you the cultural background and the setting of Yeshua in the first century and why that crucifixion hanging on a tree was such a pivotal point in humanity. That now we are honorable people. We are transferred from the realm of darkness into the realm of life. We've gone from death to life. We have gone from shame to honor. We have a new name. We're going to have a new inheritance. We have all these things because one man, a righteous man, left his holy abode to come and dwell on the earth so that you will be an honorable person. When we don't deserve that. Every single person deserves death. Would you agree with that? God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we thank you. We praise you. We uplift you. We honor you for you're so kind and you're so good. You're holy and you are true. I want to thank you for the opportunity to literally come to one of the corners of the earth to teach about your kingdom, to share about the good news of the gospel that you so given us so long ago. Please open our eyes and our minds and our hearts to see your Torah and your commandments, to run to you, O Lord, and to understand the incredible love that you have for us, that you have given in your Son, so that we can sit here today and honor you and have honor that we do not deserve. And let us be reciprocal with everything you've given us today. In the name of Yeshua. All right. So in the Honor and Shame Society, I'm going to have my phone here. I'm going to do my best to click in the back. If I go too slow, you let me know. I talk fast. I have an accent. You don't have an accent. I do. Okay. How many South Africans here? Am I in South Africa or in Australia? I've been to your beautiful country. I've been to Cape Town, London, Elizabethtown. I've been to Pretoria, Johannesburg, everywhere. I love it. It was great. I haven't been back in a long time. But you're here, so I don't need to go back. Honor and shame. Let's talk about honor and shame, and we start developing the motif throughout the Bible. In North America, in Europe, and also in Australia, we are a guilt and innocent-based culture. The rest of the world, the majority of the world, they function under what is honor and shame. The Greco-Roman word, if you want to read the letters of Paul, do some research. You'll find the word honor. There's a vocabulary, glory, honor, shame. Because it says, if you confess with your mouth that Yeshua is your master, and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. But keep reading the next two verses. For those who believe in him shall not be shamed. See, shame in the first century was actually, honor was actually more precious than gold. Back in the day, a good name meant everything. You can have money, you can have fame. But if you had a shameful past or shameful family and you have not a good name, no one wanted to do nothing with you in regards to business. So therefore, the concept of honor and shame in the first century was actually the only thing you're striving for. Now, when you go back through the gospel message and you begin to understand honor and shame, there are certain stories that you read in the gospel that reflect the motif. For example, when the woman who's turned over like this in the synagogue service, Yeshua goes in on a Sabbath morning, and then she's been sick. No one really wants to talk to her. And then he releases her out of her sickness, strengthens her body, right? If you follow the story, you know who the house of Pharisees, the leadership belonged to, just by the way you responded. They responded. The leader got upset because Yeshua was actually healing on the Sabbath. Now, there are two schools of thought in the first century. The house of Shammai, the house of Hillel. They're the two Pharisaic schools. Paul comes Gamaliel. Gamaliel was the grandson of Hillel. Hillel was actually one of the prevailing schools of thought in the first century. I'll give you a little history behind this. Now, when Yeshua goes into the synagogue, he heals someone on the Sabbath. There was an argument in Israel in the first century about praying for the sick on Shabbat. Should you pray for the sick on Shabbat? The house of Shammai said no. The house of Hillel said yes. So Yeshua is challenging the status quo of the first century about the acts of righteousness. It's not about business. Shabbat, you don't do business. But you can pray for the sick. You can minister to somebody. You follow? That's the argument. Now, how does this develop in that story? the leader gets upset. And he challenges the Messiah. That is called a challenge and a riposte. In the first century, when Yeshua has issues with the Sadducees at one time and the Pharisees the whole time, he's always a challenge and a riposte. They are challenging him. He is responding. The people now render honor or shame based on the exchange. Now, the Messiah looks at the leadership and tells them, you hypocrite. You take your animals. I want you to notice the language. You take your animals, and on the Sabbath, you take it out, I'm paraphrasing, to give it water. But then he says about the woman. Now, understand that women in the first century didn't really have the same status in society. It's a little different, just like in some cultures today. Now, what does he say about that woman? Is he going to treat her lesser of a human being than he is? No, he says, but this woman, a daughter of Abraham, he just gave her what is called ascribed honor. You have acquired honor, and then you have ascribed honor. Ascribed honor is when you come from a good family, you have a good name. You see, what Yeshua saw was not a woman walking like this that no one wanted to talk to. What Yeshua saw, someone who had the promise that God gave Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. A woman who is a descendant of a covenantal people. Now, the religion have created a caste system that you're not as important if you don't belong to this caste. Yeshua came completely to destroy that. He says, no, you don't understand. You are a daughter, a son of Abraham. You are a son. You are a daughter. And if you're a leader, you treat everyone with equity. You don't make a distinction. And that's the gospel message. And that's why it has resonated throughout the last 2,000 years. Regardless of who you are, where you come from, the whosoevers, you have the opportunity to embrace the gospel and understand what Yeshua did for you so that God can bestow upon you a new name, a new identity, a new creation, and also honor to become part of the kingdom of God. That's the love of God. But sometimes we don't know how to describe it. So therefore, we lack the words because we're not in tune with the culture. Is this making sense to you? So now, watch. Honor and shame. Let's compare the two. Honor and shame culture. Honor is based on social value and perception versus innocent and guilt on the right side, based on inner conviction and right or wrong. You can be right about something and have no honor. Look at Fauci. Don't get me started. I mean, pray for me. Thousands of people and the millions of people that died around the world. This guy plays the fifth. Pray for me. Honor and shame is concerned with maintaining honor. Innocent and guilt is concerned with justice being served. Honor and shame is gain and loss in public. Innocent and guilt stimulates fear of punishment. And honor and shame is a zero-sum economy. I mean, either you have it or you don't. How many of you know what rapping is? The style of music in the United States, right? I was there when it started. I grew up in California, South Central LA. Literally, I was smack in the middle of that whole thing when it was developing, okay? And I remember going to school, and they used to practice rapping. They're going at each other. It's like a challenge and repose, really. Everything was good. They're going at it. They're putting each other down. They're trying to shame one another. And everyone going, yeah, that was good. Yeah, well, until somebody mentioned their mama. I mean, everything was great, going back and forth. Your mama. And then start fighting because you shamed the most precious thing to your life. In a public arena, bringing shame to you, to your family, and to your mom. That's not acceptable. That was always the drawing on the sand. That's interesting. That the ancient world, it was all about a name, comparing. So let me talk a little bit. Let me move up here a little bit. Let's talk about the 4 elements of honor and shame. These are important, okay? And I'm going to give you examples in the Bible as I go along. I could do it. Pastor. I can do it. Okay, they know what I'm talking about because we're kind of crazy. We like to study for like 2 hours. So as a teacher, it says, you got 45 minutes. Because that's the way we're trained, you know what I mean? But this is a great lesson of how to go right to the point, okay? 4 elements of honor and shame. You have ascribed honor, acquired honor, challenge and repose, maintaining of honor by means of an oath. Very important. Let me give you an example of acquired honor. which is Adam and Eve. They acquire the honor because God created them to put them in a sacred space and to give them a great mandate to keep and guard the garden, which is actually a temple setting, God's kingdom. They received honor. They received the presence of God as a covering. And then their duty was to guard and keep the garden and rule God's creation. The most incredible honor that you're going to have. But then they failed the task and they committed a sin in which removed them from the status of honor and shame. And how do you know they were shamed? Because they were naked and now they were afraid. So from that moment on, nakedness becomes an idiom in the Bible of shameful things. When you are taken from one kingdom to the next one, the king who conquered the other king wants to shame you, see? So they'll destroy the temples, kill the kings, and then rape all the women and take the rest of the slaves naked throughout the wilderness. So from every town they go through, that town knows that that king has sovereignty over this kingdom by shaming them in public. Therefore, they can never restore their honor, and that's why they give in into slavery forever. Their children are now, they have no parents. Their king has been defeated. Their temples and their God no longer exist. Therefore, we give up. That's the way that it worked. ISIS does that. They do that now. Islam is the one doing exactly this. That's why in Islam, if you have a woman sleeping around, they have to do an honor killing. Because that woman is supposed to preserve the purity of the home. The man is supposed to preserve the honor of the home. If you understand this, you'll know what they do. That's why they come to your country and they try to rape the women by shaming them. And because to them, they don't have any allegiance to that, you see. To them, we have no honor. We are basically infidels. That's just the way it is. In the Bible, it was the same thing. You see, you have honor in Israel, shame the Romans. The Romans were the shameful people. To the Romans, the Jews were the shameful people. Okay, so then you have this particular thing here, ascribe honor, right? Then you have, what is ascribe honor? You actually, you have it. Like the sons of Aaron, they had ascribed honor. They were descendants of Aaron. God gave them a privilege to be part of a community in which now they're born into a family of honor. Their job was to maintain that honor. They have to keep it. So therefore, God gave them instructions to the sons of Aaron. You want to be the leaders of the home? Then you bear the iniquity of the priesthood, and you bear the iniquity of the tabernacle. If you do something wrong, you're guilty. You want the honor of the priesthood? It comes with responsibility. Right? Then you also have ascribed honor. That was acquired honor. Yeah, ascribed. Ascribed honor, you have acquired honor. Acquired honor is someone like, for example, Abraham. Abraham acquired the honor. Isaac had it ascribed. He received the honor because he believed in God, you see? So how do we know that his faith was so incredibly focused on God? He didn't really know God that well. He came out of Mesopotamia to a place that he's never seen. I will bless you, I will keep you, I will protect you. But he didn't know that God. Now he goes to a land that is not his. And there he has a very interesting encounter. Chapter 14 of the book of Genesis. Abraham at that time, he goes and meets in the Valley of the Kings after a war. And the king of Melchizedek comes out to receive him. And Melchizedek brings bread and wine. That's a covenantal meal. By the way, I've been to churches for the last 20 years. I've seen the way they do communion, and I got to be honest with you, I'll never take it. Today, your pastor gave the best explanation at what a covenantal renewal is. I've never heard an explanation because I do Passover. He explained it, okay? But the way he explained it is probably the best description of what a covenantal renewal ritual is, even the prayer. So I just want you to know that the way you did it, the way you guys did it, is completely different in a covenantal renewal language than the normal traditional way it's done every place else. Just I want you to know that he's guiding you in a way that is very different, very concrete, and very honoring. I just want to let you know that, okay? I'm honored to hear that. I told you, the moment I heard it, I go, oh, wow, never heard that before. So I want to thank you for that explanation. That was very good. Honoring those who deserve the honor. The Bible is repleted of that. You know, Abraham encounters Melchizedek. Melchizedek brings the wine and the bread, and then there's an exchange. And then Abraham encounters the king of Sodom. The king of Sodom tells him, hey, I'm going to give you this tribute. I'm going to give you a gift. Take it. And Abraham says something very peculiar. He says, no, for I have risen my hand in an oath. But where did he do that? The Bible doesn't say anywhere he raised his hand in an oath anywhere except the encounter with Melchizedek. How do I know that's the encounter in which he raised his hand? Because the language used in Genesis chapter 14 is a covenantal type of language that requires an oath. Now think about this. Abraham does not have a land of promise. Abraham has no children. He has no honor. He has no inheritance, no honor, no land, and no descendants. In the time of the Bible as well, in the first century, if you had no honor, that meant you either didn't have a family, a good name, or land. That's why the whole gospel message of Paul, he's always telling you, for you have an inheritance, and he's giving you a great name. Guys, if you're a slave in the first century, a woman in the first century who is a slave had three things to look forward to: slavery, prostitution, or death. In the biblical period, a woman who is single either was raped, submitted into slavery, or she would die. There was no protection because she was supposed to protect the purity of the home. So therefore now, if you're a slave woman in the Roman Empire, and this guy comes to you and he says, by the way, the God that of our fathers has sent us to give you the good news. Death is defeated. And then you're going to say, death is defeated. Resurrection? We don't know how resurrection occurs. If you study Greco-Roman religion, you'll know that. And then all of a sudden she would ask you, well, how did that happen? And then Paul says, well, the Messiah of Israel, had brought salvation through dying on the cross. Excuse me? He died on the cross? I want nothing to do with that Messiah. Because to the Romans, the cross or the crucifixion was the most despicable, the most shameful thing a person can have. A Roman citizen could not be crucified because it represented the power of Rome and the emperor. Now the Persians invented crucifixion. The Romans perfected it. That's why Paul was not crucified. Peter was, upside down, to completely shame him. So for someone to accept Yeshua, the one who was on the cross by the Roman Empire, but then he resurrected, that's why the gospel exploded. Let me tell you why. You see, back in the day, they believed that the emperor had complete autonomy and power in the whole empire. He determined life and death. If the emperor sent for you to be crucified, not only would you shame, your family would be shamed, and your name would be shamed forever. No way to restore your honor at all. All of a sudden now there's this Jewish guy, a Jewish guy. They are under the submission of the Romans. A Jewish Messiah now dies on a tree, but then on the third day he resurrects. A status of reversal from shame to honor. Yeshua comes from the heavenly abode, from honor to shame, the shame of the cross to honor, being lifted up again into his royal status. That's what Philippians is all about. Is this making sense to you? Okay. So imagine if you are a Roman or a Greek or you live in Asia Minor and all of a sudden you hear about this Judean, a Jewish man who dies on a cross. That means that he was shamed by the Romans. Therefore, he doesn't deserve any respect. But then you hear that the same guy who died on the cross, the same Jewish who died on the cross, resurrected on the third day. That will send some scary thing through the veins of people. Why? Because now it means that the God of Israel has more power than the emperor. That the God of Israel is the one that has dominion over Hades. Now that the God of Israel is the one that determines your guilt or your innocence or your shame or your honor. It is him who does it. And because Yeshua lived a righteous life, he lived according to righteousness and justice. It's letting everybody know, according to the ancient world, if I do what God requires of me and I die, then he is righteous to justify me by giving me the gift that he gave his own son, which is eternal life. You have received that gift. Are we reciprocal with him to bring honor to his name by our actions? That's what we need to consider. But if we do not understand the mechanics of how it works, then we're never going to truly understand our duty to live in a manner that reflects, the integrity of the gospel message. And that's the biggest challenge we all have. You're really quiet. I'm getting used to the quietness in Australia. I'm getting used to it, okay? I'm getting used to it. Puerto Ricans, you don't say half a word, amen, but I know you're with me. I know you're with me, okay? So how about the riposte or response to the challenge? This is an important thing. Challenge and repose. I'm going a little faster because I'm limited in time, so I want to make sure. David de Silva, I highly recommend you consider getting that book. It's by David de Silva. I met him on the plane coming here. I actually did a conference with him, an Honor and Shame conference in Chicago about 10 years ago. But he came to my breakout session, but I really didn't get a chance to talk to him much. Then I'm in California getting ready to board my plane to Sydney, and I look across, it's David de Silva right there. I got all his books. So I go to him, hey, professor, how are you? My name is such and such and such. And we spent like 2 hours on the plane talking about this whole thing. It was really cool. So I do recommend the book. I've read it, and I talked to the person. He's a nice guy. All right? I don't agree with everything, but that's okay. All right. Said the challenge and repose is essential to attempt to gain honor at someone else's expense. A debate, a political debate. What happens with the debates happens every year or every other year, whatever the political arena is here, that you have all these debates. And then they start destroying their character, lying about that person to gain your vote. So what we don't realize that we are giving a vote to somebody, based on someone else's opinion of that person. And sometimes because of media, we believe it. And we fall guilty into, perpetuating a false narrative of a person just because we don't have all of the information. A debate, biblical debate is the same thing. I post a question, you give me an answer. You can make it a challenge, but who determines what is right or wrong is the audience in the first century. So the challenge repost is essential in an attempt to gain honor at someone else's expense. Publicly posing a challenge that cannot be answered. When a challenge has been posed, the challenge must make some sort of response. And no response is considered a response. Keep that in mind because Yeshua's on the tree. He said nothing. Because in the time of the first century, pain was expected. But what defined that person as an honorable person, not was complaining about the pain, is basically the silence. You see it in sports today. I played professional baseball 6 years. And at times where I was injured. And I played with my injury. And through my injury, I did something that caused the team to win. Therefore, I was celebrated as someone who did something extraordinary only because I was not 100%. To them, that was honorable. Man, you were all messed up and you still did this? You see what I'm saying? It makes no sense. That's how it works. So let's talk about a principle that is called honor status reversal. This is a very important one. And I learned this from a professor. He's a friend of mine, Werner Mischke, and I asked permission to use it. It's an honor status reversal. Adam came from honor to shame, right? Right? And then Yeshua goes from honor, shame to honor. You have gone from shame to honor. Based on our obedience, we can go back to shame. David went from shame. His brothers didn't want him. He was the least of the people thought that he could be the king of Israel. God exalted him to the position of king, honor. Then he commits sins, and then he's shamed, and then he is given honor. Solomon, he went from honor. He got ascribed honor because of his father, but he sinned, so he was shamed. He repented at the end. So you can see Joseph, he goes from honor, receiving the garments that makes him as the firstborn of the family. That created a huge problem within the family, right? And then the brothers tried to get him naked, remove this garment, shame him of the bestowed honor that his father gave him. Because he did not behave the way an honorable person should. Instead of trying to help their brothers, he's telling on their brothers, complaining to the father, your dad, man, they're knuckleheads, don't talk to them. Give them to me. Now think about this. If you're Reuben, right, and you're the firstborn of Leah, whom your father doesn't love. And there's Joseph, who is the younger brother to Reuben, the firstborn of Rachel, whom the father desperately loves. She must have been really good looking for that guy to work almost 20 years for her. I can't wait to see her in the kingdom, Hey, where's Rachel? Rachel, where you at? No wonder. Jacob, I get you, man. I got it. I understand 14 years, oh Lord, Now you know how my mind works. Okay. So then you have, what was I saying? Then you have Joseph, and you have Rachel, you have Leah, you have Reuben. And then Jacob, he says, okay, I want Joseph to wear this garment. In reality, it's not a color garment. The word in Hebrew, pasim, even the rabbis don't know what it means. But when you go back to the ancient historical accounts, it means that that garment was special. It reflected the authority and the fact that now this guy had the sole leadership of the family after the father was done. Now how, there's a perfect honor and shame right here. Joseph received the honor. His brothers shame him by what? Removing the garments. Chapter 38 of the book of Genesis is all about the garment. They remove it from him. Then they give it to him. They remove it from him. Then they take it to the father with blood of a goat. Now, what's interesting is they shame him to the point they throw him in a pit, right? And then they're eating as Joseph is calling out for them. Then he comes out and they sell him to the Midianites and somebody else, I forgot the other name. And then they take him to Egypt and there he is shamed. But then he receives honor. Every time he got honor, he was shamed. Until he becomes second in the power of Egypt. Got it? How did Reuben responded to the whole exchange with their brothers? Complete chaos. Reuben didn't like the fact that his father gave the firstborn to the youngest guy, to the mother that obviously he is defending his mom. You don't like my mom. And now you're going to take what's mine to somebody else? So therefore, what does he do? Not a good idea. He goes and sleeps with a handmaid of Jacob, shaming his bed. The ultimate type of shame. The penalty was death. Jacob didn't do it. I don't know why. Because at that time, that means that shame would have carried throughout. So we have this blueprint here. Watch, let me show you. Well, let's define definition of honor status reversal. Very important one. Are you enjoying yourself so far? Okay. Okay, it says, honor status reversals when a person, a family, or people have whatever degree of esteem, respect, privilege, power, or authority before a community. Turn the other way around. One's honor status can be high or low, ranging from lowest honor status as a leper or a slave, to the immensely powerful position of a mighty king or a priest. Now, let's consider for 1 second the story of the leper. I don't know if you really pay close attention to the narrative when Yeshua sees the leper and he wants to be healed, and Yeshua does something very unique that no one really would do. A leper will say, unclean, 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 and no one can touch him. But you see, Yeshua is bringing a message, you see, full reconciliation. He is trying to, every healing that he did, the resurrection of the dead and Lazarus, and the healing of the leper, and feeding of the people that were needy, and taking care of the homeless, that was all a way to restore the honor of Israel, the falling image of God, that through sin they've gone into exile, and now they are in the state of mortality. Yeshua is sending the picture that the Father sent him to restore his image back to him. We are image bearers. We are created in the image of God. But because of sin, we are decaying. We get sick. Thus, shaming the one who created us, that we will forever be in his presence. Is this making sense? So Yeshua does something very interesting. He goes to the leper and he touches him. You see, we focus on the miracle and we lost the psychological message behind the miracle. Yeshua, with all due respect, Pastor, Yeshua touched him. Guarantee you that guy has not been touched for a long time. Because every time they see him, unclean, and he has to run in shame because he has a skin affliction that he doesn't understand, and that keeps him away from the community, away from the temple, away from sacred space, away from relationship with the community. The worst type of shame. That's what death has done. Death has separated us from the glory of God. Yeshua was sent to restore us into God's perfect image so that now we can return to the garden. But we need to honor God for that great work of redemption. And we don't know how. So when Yeshua touches the leper, really the message is out touching him, making him feel like you matter. Making you feel like the miracle is not for me, for God, for Yeshua to receive honor. Oh, he healed. No. It's for him to realize I'm a human being. He touched me. He didn't look at me with disdain. He didn't throw me away. He didn't run away. He didn't say unclean, unclean. He was willing to get near me. He was willing to touch me. He was willing to be like me one-on-one, to reflect the love of God through him. That's the message. And sometimes we have the Torah and we have the commandments and we have Messiah, but we make a distinction between people because they're not as good as us. Oh, they don't know as much as us. They don't have more money than us. They're not the same skin color as us. When in reality, God has never made a distinction with anybody. We need to take this message out. Is this making sense? We need to go back to understand what shame and honor is. So therefore, watch this. You have honor. Let's start with the left. You have honor, shame to honor, shame to honor. Then you have shame, honor, and also shame, reversing. And then you have honor to shame. You see that all through the Bible. For example, Adam, I already mentioned that. Joseph, I already mentioned that. Abraham, from shame, no covenant, to honor. Abraham, right? Isaac, from honor, ascribed honor, and he kept the honor, right? Then you have the children of Israel. They go from honor, peculiar people, royal priesthood, to the rebellion and the exile, shame. And then God brings them back. Humanity, we were supposed to be in the image of God. And because of Adam, we have fallen. So therefore, we come from shame to honor. The God of Israel not only restored Israel to the covenant, but has given you the opportunity to also have the honor, to acquire the honor, so that your children will have ascribed honor. We don't think a lot of times that way. So let's get right into the nitty-gritty here that I want to take you to. When you go now and talk about the Messiah, the ultimate humiliation, remember that in the first century, crucifixion was the most despicable, the most shameful thing that any human being can experience in that culture. And our Messiah went through it. But this is a perfect example to an honor status reversal. Messiah comes from the heavenly abode. He comes to the earth, and he takes the form of man. He goes through everything we go through, and then he suffers the most shameful thing, which is the cross. And then the Lord restores his honor by giving him the name that is above every name, and by also giving him the kingdom, and also put him in a position to rule and reign the earth. And by the way, how do I know that Eden will be restored? When Yeshua resurrected, Miriam, remember Mary? Went to look for him. Did she recognize him? She thought he was what? A gardener returning to the garden. I mean, she walked around with Yeshua. How come she did not recognize him? She thought he was the gardener. Guys, it's sending you a message. The resurrection of the Messiah is the final blow to death. It's the final battle against what's keeping you and I from receiving the ultimate honor that death is trying to take away from you, eternal life. The enemy has no power in your life. The enemy can only entice you, can only provoke for you to doubt so that you take action against the commandments of God so that you become dishonorable before the eyes of the Lord. And moral behavior is what separates us from the presence of the Lord. That's why everything immoral, God despises. Why? Because it creates a wedge of division. It puts you in the realm of shame. And the Lord cannot deal with that. He needs you to be in the realm of life, in the realm of honor. Making sense? So therefore, we have from humiliation to the crucifixion, and then future reign of Messiah. A classic example of this. Philippians chapter 2 is the message. Let's read it together, okay? Give me 1 second. Let me find it here. Philippians chapter 2, let's read it together. It says, have this in your mind, which was also a Messiah, Yeshua, who existing in the form of God, didn't consider equally with God a thing to be grasped. You're not helping me. Must be my accent. Verse 7, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, being made like a likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself, becoming obedient to death. Yes, the death of the cross. That would have been a huge statement in the time of Paul. A huge, okay? Verse 9, therefore God also highly exalted him, honor, and gave him the name that is above every name. And that in the name of Yeshua, every knee shall bow, of those in heaven, those on the earth, and under the heavens. And that every tongue shall confess that Messiah, Yeshua, is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. It was the Lord who changed his status. The Romans trying to shame him, and the Lord says, no, he is mine. He is innocent. He is justified because he did everything I asked him to do. That means that God is never going to leave you desolate. God is never going to leave you in shame. The Lord is never going to leave you so that the world may laugh now, but when the resurrection day comes, you will be justified. You will be honored, and you receive an inheritance, and you receive the identity that you're so much fighting for. That's the character of my God. So let's move on to the last part here. And again, this is very significant to me, and I hope that to you is actually a blessing. So let's talk about the crucifixion now. Someday I'll come back, I'll teach you the whole thing. Crucifixion and shaming. I want to put in perspective to you in the last 10 minutes that I have left. I'm going to focus only on this. See, sometimes we come to congregations, and I travel the world. I've been to 38 countries, and I have students in 70 countries, and I'm honored to teach the Word of God. But sometimes I need to be reminded of what Messiah did for me. Sometimes I got to go back into my little cave and ask the Lord, thank you for giving me. And I have this sense of gratitude that I cannot describe to you. I've been studying the book of Leviticus for a long time. I've committed myself to study for the whole decade. I spent a year and a half already studying it. It has transformed my life. And I hope someday you will consider looking into it. But then this right here, when I learned it, I remember about 10 years ago, I learned this and I go, wow. I never realized that. We focus on the pain of the cross and the shedding of the blood. I get it, but we don't realize the shame that Yeshua was willing to take so that you and I can be honorable people today. You see, in the eyes of God, we belong to His kingdom. Therefore, we have acquired honor now. Acquired honor. But we don't really sometimes value that honor because we don't understand what it took in order for us to now be given to. On a simple act of faith, Lord, I accept you as my Messiah. I confess with my mouth that you are the Messiah. I believe that you, oh God, resurrected him from the dead. And then if you read the next verse, it says, so that you will not be ashamed. You see, in the first century, believing in somebody who died on the cross was the most shameful thing. Like, you think in the first century they would have walked around with a cross? They're not walking around with a cross in the first century. That's a modern day thing. You're not going to walk around displaying something that was so shameful to the whole Roman world. But those people understood what happened on the tree. Those people understood what resurrection was, to the point that when the Romans challenged them, they were willing to die to protect their oath because they understood what it took to die on that tree. They knew the shame that Yeshua had to take so that they would be free. That's why the slaves they came in droves into the gospel. They had nothing else to lose. They had no name. They had no inheritance. They had no family. They had nothing, no honor. And believing in the hung one, like they called it, will give them the next world to come. You see, those people were looking forward to the world to come because they had nothing to gain in their world that was present. Just like we're looking like Abraham. We've never met the God of Israel. We are getting to know him through the Bible. It's through the Messiah that we're getting to know him. And all he wants to do is saying, I want to give you my commandments so you live according to them, so that you'll be righteous in my eyes. I will give you an inheritance. I will give you a good name. I even put your name on the pillars of my temple. If you go to Ephesus, you'll know exactly what that means. In Ephesus, the people who will donate to the temples, they will have a great honor to be inscribed in the pillars of the temple, meaning that you have value, that you have honor. That's what he thinks of you. But in order for you to receive that honor, what did my master have to go through? You see, the King of the universe sent him for a purpose. And Yeshua took the purpose, and he was willing to follow through with it, never taking the bait of Satan. Satan offered him the kingdom. He rejected it. He didn't do what Adam did. The offer that was given to Adam, you'll be like God. Give me the fruit to eat. Yeshua was given, the kingdom will be yours. What Yeshua said, he quoted Deuteronomy 8, stand behind me, Satan. He put him in his place. You're not going to tempt him. He passed the test so that you will be here innocent now in the eyes of God and justified. It's a big price to pay. Are we really worthy of that price? So what did they do to shaming? Who was the people who were crucified? Used for slaves, bandits, prisoners of war, and political revolutionaries. That's the reason why they crucified him, because they say, you're going to be the king of the Jews? That's an affront to the Roman Empire. Public trials served as a status degradation ritual, which labeled the accused a shameful person. And all he ever did was heal the sick, feed the homeless, take care of the widows, heal the leper, resurrect the dead. That's a shameful person. When all he did was bring value to Israel, value to the kingdom. The next thing was flogging and torture, especially blinding and shedding of blood, generally accompanied the sentence. This was done in front and back in the nude. Shameful. Just like Adam, the garments were removed, so they removed the garments of our Messiah. My Messiah was naked on that tree to carry your nakedness and mine. Just so that we will be bestowed of honor to receive the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, so we'll be dressed through him. And sometimes we forget they came with a price. Worse, it came with shame. Something that we're not willing to take. Sometimes that we will not be willing to go through. That's the love of God through him. This was done in the back in the noon when the person befouling themselves, my Messiah, befouling himself on the tree. You know what that means. Losing all capabilities of bodily control. Just so because he's trying to restore the honor of his Father. He's trying to restore Eden, where death no longer has any power. He's calling you now to represent his honor here in this country. To let them know that what you believe came with a price. Came with a sacrifice. Sacrifice meaning, through him, now we can draw near to God because we're no longer shameful people. In the eyes of the Lord, we are justified. We are now declared righteous by the Lord. Why? Because he was willing to take our shame. See, how many of you have never considered looking at this from a shameful perspective? It's always about, shedding of the blood and the pain and all that stuff. The shame was worse. The condemned were forced to carry the crossbeam. Yeshua did that for us. The victim's property, normally clothing, is confiscated to shame them with nudity. Loss of power and thus honor. Through what? Through pinning the hands and arms through nailing. That was a particular message they're trying to send. You limit their movement, they cannot defend themselves. In other words, the Roman Empire has complete dominion over you, your family, your name, and what you represent. Yeshua is saying, hey, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Really, they didn't know what they were doing. Execution were public entertainment where the crowd would mock the victim. Sometimes the person would even be affixed in an odd and whimsical manner. Slow and protracted death. Powerless victims suffer bodily distortions, loss of bodily control, and an erection. No chance of vengeance. Now you see, I got to put all that in there so you get a visual of what he went through so that now we're honorable people. We have forgotten our first love because we never understood what it took to acquire it. And I'm here hopefully to let you know that you as a young man, you need to know more than ever now the price that was paid so that you will be here today free. Because the world is trying to tell you that the God of Israel does not exist. The world is trying to let you know that he is not the creator of this earth. But you need to know that there was a price paid for us. It's more than just gold. We were ransomed, not only through the blood of Messiah, but also via the shame of the Messiah. He took it upon himself so that you will not carry that shame. And that shame is not only what he suffered, but it's also the consequences of what happened on that tree, which was death. Is this making sense to you? Are we grateful? Are we thankful to God for what he has done for us? Because surely we should deserve that. You see, pain was not shameful. As many warriors endure pain. However, the silence of the victor during torture was a mark of honor. My Messiah, the Son of the living God, knowing that he was innocent, knowing that he was doing his role, his purpose, and his function. He was unjustly accused, and he didn't say a word. He was unjustly punished. Penalty, and he suffered knowing that he was innocent because his only objective was to restore the honor of his Father so that death will be defeated, so all of humanity would know that God has answered the question that everyone was seeking: who has dominion over death? The story, as you know, the story speaks about the whole thing from Genesis to Revelation. It's all about who has the victory over death. Crucifixion was the final blow to that particular. What else did he go through? They spitted on him. They're striking him in the face and the head, ridiculing him, heaping insult on him, carrying the crossbeam, stripping his clothing, public crucifixion, shameful things, so that now as a kingdom we can be here enjoying our salvation, enjoying our freedom in Messiah, so that we can bring honor to his name through our behavior, through his righteousness and his justice. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, I'm honored to receive this opportunity. The doors are opening in the church system for me to teach. I'm extremely honored. But I want you to bring the message that is really important. That although we are shameful people, even to this day, we do things that bring shame to God and we don't even know it. But although we are shameful, we were born in shame. We behaved in a shameful manner. But through all of that, consider this. When you cried out to God in the midst of your shame, in our idolatry, in our rebellions, in our immorality, in our desolation, in our exile, in our shame, when you cried out to you, Yeshua stood up and told the Father, I took the shame so that you can restore their honor. Because God so loved the world, and the word there, the word in Greek is now world, is cosmos. God so loved the cosmos that he gave his only begotten Son. Whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. You are the whosoevers. We are the whosoevers. That all we deserve was shame, death. But in mercy, the God of Israel inclined his ear to your prayers. He was not bound to hear the prayers anyone other than Israel, because he gave his oath and the promise to the kingdom of Israel that they're in covenant with him. But in his mercy, God also extended that particular mercy to the nations. And you are the testimony that the God of Israel is true, that the God of Israel works in his righteousness, that he inclined his ear even to people who don't belong to his kingdom, because you've been oppressed, because you've been persecuted, because you have suffered shame, and he understands. And Messiah, because he suffered the shame, he knows what you feel. So when you call out to him for mercy, he will become your perfect mediator, your advocate. Because we receive mercy, not because we're worthy of it, but because of the complete work of Messiah, bearing our shame, so that we will be honorable people. And today, as the kingdom of God, and then when you go from death to life, from shame to honor, all he expects of us is obedience. All he wants us is to proclaim his goodness. All he wants is for us to bear witness of how good and kind and just the God of Israel is. And this is what I'm asking desperately. I'm actually even begging my King to grant me the opportunity to go to as far as I can go, to let even know one person how good, how kind, how just, how faithful my King is. That he can restore whomever, if you only believe that he's the only capable one to give you honor from shame, from death to life. And that's why I serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the great and awesome God, supreme God, who bestows beneficial kindness and creates everything, who brings a redeemer to the children's children for his name's sake. He is my King, he is my shield, and he is my rock. And I will proclaim him all the days of my life, because I know I don't deserve mercy. And I surely don't. I know that I don't deserve any honor. He deserves it all. But he has bestowed it upon us, so that now we feel empowered to say to the nations, though I was shamed, God has given me acquired honor. And to see my family members receive now ascribed honor. Acquired to ascribed. That my kids will be able to have a testimony that someone actually stood in the gap for them, so that we can all live as an honorable kingdom. My last question to you. Are we behaving with the honor, with the reverence, and with the obedience that our King deserves? Because he paid a heavy price. He was willing to die and take the shame so that we can be here today. But we can rejoice. And we can be happy knowing that in everything that he did was the master plan, so he can gather you from the nations. And with all due respect to every single one here in Australia, I'm honored to be here. I'm grateful to be here. I pray that something that I said to you will prompt you to look more into this topic, because it's life-changing. When you get on a plane and then you're thinking, wow, it's a long flight all the way to Australia. And he's bringing me on eagle's wings with air conditioning. And then I wonder, why would I want to go to meet people I don't even know? And then there's a soft voice reminding me, I'm an ambassador of the kingdom. And I want to bring you a message from my king. My king is good. My king hears your prayers. He just wants you to continue to honor his name in the midst of trial and tribulations, so that the whole world someday will say, Adonai hu Elohim, the God of Israel, he is God. Thank you for the opportunity. God bless you. And I'm honored to be here today. And I pray this teaching was edifying to you. Shalom to you.